So let's talk about FlowUIController. A FlowUIController is a controller where the tab order between the controls is not controlled by the view, but by the order of the controls in its controller. Let me show you what I mean by that. So to do this demo, I created a controller called Show Orders Demo FlowUIController. We can see it's a UI controller, and we can see the screen and we can run it. And we show our controls and we see the tab order. Now, a FlowUIController allows you to change the tab order based on some definitions that I'll show in a second, and also introduce logic in between those controls. So you can say that something will happen when you move from customer ID to employee ID, okay, or from customer ID to required date, between those two fields in your columns collection. It's columns in your columns collection. So let's turn this controller into a FlowUIController and show you how it controls the tab. So far we had a normal controller. To change it to a FlowUIController, we'll just inherit from FlowUIController instead of inheriting from UIController base. Just by changing this inheritance, this is now a FlowUIController, and the tab index is controlled by the order of columns in my controller. So let's add some columns to the column collection so we can control that. We'll go over to the orders table and select a few columns and drag them into our code using the Shift shortcut. Okay, and this is how columns add has been added here. Great, so we have these 5 columns set. And we can run our code, and we can see that the tab order is the same as the order of the control over here on the left. Perfect. Now, this array, the columns collection, controls the tab order. So if, for example, I'll take required date and move it up, I'll move it by using the Alt arrow that allows me to move lines. So I'll make it required date, order ID, customer ID. Then required date will be the first field because it's the first entry in the columns collection. After that, it will go to order ID, customer ID, employee ID, and order date. So the main thing to understand about a FlowUIController is that the column collection controls the order of the columns. And if I move this back down, the order of the columns will be okay again. Perfect. So what did it take to take a normal controller into a FlowUIController? Let's review. All we needed to do is change the inheritance from UIController base to FlowUIController base, and we can add the columns that we want to control our tab order.